Good morning, everybody. Professor Mani welcoming you this time for a very special session on a Saturday. Many of us did meet last evening when we had this wonderful session on business analytics. And I'm sure many of us remember that business analytics and its applications, they highlighted the two areas would really change the way the world functions. One is application to healthcare, and the second was the applications to the retail industry. How coincident it was that today we are celebrating Retail Employees Day. And I think it is so very apt that on this special program, we have someone very special with us who is going to share his perspectives, his vision on this entire domain of retail. Let me have the honor and privilege to welcome Mr. B.S. Nagesh. For those of us who know retail industry, he would be considered rightly as the Bhishma Pitamaha of the retail industry. Year 1991, when the Raheja Group decided to move into the retail, the person they identified who would make this change happen was none other than Mr. B.S. Nagesh, very affectionately called BSN. And for us at ITM, there is a sheer nostalgia with Mr. Nagesh that ITM too was born in the year 1991. And since then, we've been interacting on several forums together. And it's always a privilege to listen to him and have him share his perspectives. Thank you, Nagesh, for so readily agreeing, especially on this day, which we celebrate as the Retail Employees Day. I'm sure all of us know how much we depended on the retailers over the last 6 months, except perhaps we started looking at our neighborhood retailer with a great amount of respect and awe as compared to the big names in the business whom we had got hooked to. Nevertheless, those are perspectives, those are views which I leave to the expert to share. But I must tell you, Mr. Nagesh comes with a wonderful band of experience. He's perhaps worked with the best of brands and made them super brands, be it VIP, be it Corona, and of course, Shoppers Stop is a brand which I guess makes India proud for a lifetime. What started in 1991 with one outlet today boasts of over 75 outlets in 35 cities of India. And Mr. Nagesh continues to be the guide philosopher for that venture, continues to be the non-executive chairman of Shoppers Stop. The wonderful human being that he is, he decided that one must do something for both the retailers as well as the retail employees. And thus about 10 years ago was born Train. And I leave it to him to tell you more about the mission vision of Train. But it basically looks at a platform which can bind retailers and retail employees and ensure that both of them can support each other to build synergies. So in this era, when we are talking about Corona warriors, I think we should also talk about the retail heroes who ended up being silent Corona warriors for us beyond the medical profession. Privileged to have you here with us this morning, and may I hand over the floor to Mr. Nagesh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Mani, and thank you everybody in BMA for inviting me. Yes, it's a pleasure interacting with the members of BMA, and today happens to be Retail Employees Day, a day that we created for the 46 million plus employees who work in retail in India and 500 million plus people who work in retail worldwide. It's amazing as to we don't realize that India is the only country which has between 12 to 15 million retail outlets, and one out of every 100 Indians has one retailer there serving them. And this, I think, is a very, very rare phenomenon because around the world, you don't have density of retail like this. So literally, India is a nation of shopkeepers, and retail is a very, very big business. For me to give you a good feeling of what the industry is like, let me just share with you some statistics. 800 billion is the kind of business consumption that happens out of India in terms of retail. And if you look at the total number of people who work, it's 46 million. If you look at the categories, the largest category is food, of course. And in food, if you look at it, the modern retail is just about 1.5%, whereas the traditional retail, which is the kiranas and others, are still 97, 98%, almost around there, depending on how you see it in the stats. Then, of course, apparel, jewelry, electronics, these are large businesses. And modern retail overall, if you look at it, is about 10%, which means 90% is still small shopkeepers and small retailers or traditional retailers. Now, this is very, very important for us because although modern retail came in about 20 years back, online came in about 10 years back, but somewhere we get this feeling that everything is modern retail and everything is online retail, which is not true. And if you look at the vastness of the country, and if you look at the growth of our economy, which is still at maybe next year we'll come back to 7-8%, the overall growth is much larger than the growth of the modern retail. So therefore, for modern retail to take share or online to take share, a substantial share, is maybe another 10, 20, 30 years to go. It's also important to know that retail actually sustains itself on the basis of convenience and what it provides. Even America, which probably is one of the largest houses of modern retail as well as online, the biggest retailer in the world, Walmart, offline, and now, of course, they're omni-channel, and the biggest online retailer, Amazon, are sitting out of US. But if you look at the market share of Amazon or Walmart, it is not more than 15% in their own countries. So therefore, it is important for us to understand that retail will sustain itself. The way we retail may change, the way you consume may change, but retailers both online and offline will retail themselves. This is very, very positive news for India because with 46 million people working in retail, and our stats at the trust that I run is about 5.4 is the family size of a retail employee. We are talking about 210, 220 million Indians who are directly, indirectly connected with retail. So it's a very large population. हम लोग तो दुकानदारी हैं, we are a nation of shopkeepers. But things have changed, and it is important for us to understand the changes that have happened. One, of course, the change is that you all have mobiles, you all have laptops, and you are all virtually connected, and that's what is making us talk to each other. And this is the life that we are actually living with in the last 10 years. And in the last few years, this life has become much more different, especially in the last 6 to 8 months' time. Even a newborn baby, at the time of birth itself, the parents are showing all the family members, baby on the video, on the Zoom calls. So baby opens his eyes, and the first thing she or he sees is a screen in front of her, and then it goes on and on and on. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody who has a 2-year-old kid, and I think the kindergarten or the nursery or the play school that she goes in has a 2-hour class for the baby on screen. And just imagine if you have to do 2 hours of class for 2.5 years, 3 years on screen. This is the life that they're going to live with, and this is the growth that they will see. So being on screen, presentable on screen, and interacting on screen is probably the way of life for probably the next generation, the 10, 15, 20, 30 years time. So online did bring in a big change in the last 6 to 8 months time. Kiranas and the traditional retailers brought in a huge change. So when the pandemic hit, the first thing that the government did was it allowed the kiranas nearby online to start supplies, especially in food and essential commodities, which was food, baby products, essential electronics, table chairs, and things like that, which was required. And this actually made a big difference to all of us. We are probably one of the very few countries in the world where 130 crore Indians, our kitchens were firing all through the last 7, 8, 10 months. And the retailers didn't let us down at all. We were all locked in the house. We had fear to go out of our place. In fact, many of us wouldn't have allowed children to go out of their house. But don't forget that 46 million people, they were all there on the storefronts. They were also children of yours and mine, and they also came out of their house to serve the nation. Now, that's the kind of retail that we have. But Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal, Myntra, all these retailers also have been fantastic. So if you look at the shift of retail that has happened online in the last 8 to 9 months has been substantial. Substantial in the sense that they have seen a growth of between 65 to 100% over last year. The traditional retailers, kiranas, have seen either a flat line or a growth. The modern retailers who are in malls, which were actually not allowed to open, have seen a negative growth. So that's on the supply side. On the consumption side, also there's a huge change. The change has happened in a way where we actually see some permanent shifts and some shifts which are likely to come back. But let's look at the consumers and break them into 3 or 4 cohorts. The first cohort I want to talk about is senior citizens. And when we say senior citizen, I am not meaning old citizens. Because today's health and well-being makes even a 60-year, I'm a 61-year-old, okay? All of us are fit and fine. And at 60 and 61, we want to do trekking, we want to do adventure, we want to move around, and we want to be happy because most of us have finished our responsibilities, okay? Our children are earning, and we have our own savings, and therefore we want to spend and move around and do things. But two things happened. Government and the world said that senior citizens or citizens with comorbidities, okay, please don't go out. So there was a governmental and a social pressure. Then most of our children would say, dad, mom, grandpa, grandfather, grandma, don't go out. So there were restrictions for us. But a lot, many of us who have never probably done more than just a WhatsApp or a messaging on the phone, in the last 6 months have learned how to operate the mobile in a way that we're absolutely independent. In fact, there's a girl somewhere in the northern India who has started classes for senior citizens to teach them right from uploading of photographs to videos to downloading to shopping on Amazon, shopping on various brands, and actually chit-chatting, doing Zoom calls, doing MS Teams calls. So there's a new business the girl has started, and I'm told this is becoming a big business. So this set of people, and India is having a large numbers, this set of people have got used to working and shopping from home, but they have the money. And this is again a big opportunity for Indian businesses to tap this because these are people who have good amount of disposable income, very, very nice mindset, okay, free of encumbrances. So opportunity there, and this behavior is likely to continue till the time the vaccine comes in. And post-vaccine, there could be some changes, but it is not that they will all go back immediately because of the fear of various health issues. But this is an opportunity for India, and this is an opportunity to serve the citizens. The next, if I look at it, go into the youngsters, the teens, the 12 to 18, 18, 21. These are millennials or Gen Z who are already hooked to digital. And these are people who have lived life very differently. They have been much more secure than many of us who were insecure in our career times. So if you look at them, they have in the last few years told us, dad, mom, why do we require 10 jeans? Why do we require so many shirts? Why do we require a big wardrobe? These are people who, after do their graduation, don't want to take a permanent job. They're doing some work from home. In fact, I know of a student in US college who last 8 months has been traveling across the world, okay, and does everything on the laptop. But she loves traveling, where she wants to join National Geographic as a career. But she's around the world traveling and wherever it is permitted, subject to the airlines. And she's in open areas, but she's also doing her classes. So it's an amazing new world for this segment of customers. But these are customers who would have free money because their life, they're leading very simple compared to many of us in the middle who actually got into living in a different way because we were the first generations who aspired and got money in our hands. So this is a segment which again will have to be dealt with very differently, but this is a segment which is growing. And as we go forward, we'll be addressing this. Then the bulk of the middle class, the Indian middle class with about 30, 40 million households, which we all talk of and say this is what the real India is, and or what many people call as India 1, India 2. I think these are large houses who had commitments to themselves and who are going through a huge shift in the way they operate and the way they are likely to operate. So imagine a young couple, 28 to 35, 38, having two children. Both the couples are working and both the children are at good school, and you're staying in a two-bedroom house. And this house was taken on a loan. Now, there is a lot of shift that's happening in terms of their life. Chances are both of them have a job but had a cut in salary. Chances are both of them work in a bank or work in a IT. There's no cut in salary. Their salaries are all fine, but they're all working from home. And both the kids are also working from home. So from two mobiles, now suddenly you have two mobiles, maybe two televisions and maybe two laptops. Now suddenly you have two mobiles, two televisions and maybe four laptops because the kids also have to actually study. So that's a change in terms of, but there also is the consumption changes that has happened. There could be a scenario that one of them have lost a job. There are scenarios where both of them have lost a job. Yeah. There are scenarios where the mother is working, but she also has to ensure that the kid's school, which is happening online, she has to take care of. So therefore, it is very, very critical for all of us to understand that this segment of customer will go through a change and understand the customer before we make our target audience and say this is what we want to do for them. But there are opportunities. There are opportunities for services. There are opportunities for new kinds of gadgets. There are opportunities for new kinds of apps. Okay, and there has to be a lot of adjustment all across. Adjustment for family members if they're staying with the parents. Adjustment by companies, corporates, because they have to understand that the life working from home is not the same. The responsibilities and the way they have to look at it is not the same. Also adjustments from the employees themselves, because they are no more now working out of office. That the timings are very different. I mean, you are doing online, and therefore sometimes you are extending hours. Of course, you don't have commute time, but you have extended hours. So this is a new segment of customers who have come in, and this behavior will also require a different kind of attention from businessmen like you who are probably watching this program in terms of addressing their needs. But this will remain. This will remain. If you look at this changes and the retail changes, and look at what is the opportunity as we go forward, I think the biggest opportunity is to being an omni-channel player. You can't be just brick and mortar. I mean, it's taken us 30 years in Shoppers to go into 35 stores and create 35 cities and create department stores there. Okay, but in less than a year's time, our online shopping, okay, which has grown almost double, 2.5 times in the last 8-9 months, is already reaching 15, 20,000 pin codes. And I think this is a change. I mean, it would have taken us all our lifetime to reach so many pin codes. So the spread and distribution and reach of online is going to penetrate our country much faster than we ever imagined, although we're a large country. That's number one. Number two, on the supply side, the whole country, which is full of entrepreneurs, okay, you know that 97% of our businesses come from MSMEs. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are sitting in small, small towns, okay, having fabulous skills, fabulous products, but did not have the ability to reach the customer. Suddenly, their hands are now full of opportunities. So they're sitting in some garage, in some corner in Rajasthan, okay, but they are creating an artifact which is so beautiful. And just husband, wife, or husband, son are sitting from a garage and actually producing this and sending it across the world. Many of them have actually started exporting it through any of these online sites, whether it's a Walmart or an Amazon or an IKEA or whatever it is. So both there is a supply side opportunity and there is a consumption side opportunity which has got created. And this is new. And this, I think, is important for us to understand, because this is what will create opportunities. Yeah. But this also is a movement which will probably help us in de-urbanization. And there's a possibility that a lot of things will happen locally. And therefore, there is a possibility that many more new towns will develop. There's a possibility that you'll have less of clutter in the urban cities as you go forward because people are not traveling. A lot of businesses, which is B2B business, suddenly realized you don't have to do travel to do sales calls, especially B2B. You can do it online. It's very productive. And decisions can be taken very fast and everything is recorded if you want. There is evidence. So it's much, much different life for all of us. But this is also changing the employment parameters of the country. So for example, if you look at it, if online has become so large and every part of online, then you're also creating millions and millions of delivery jobs in this country. Now, these are jobs which have less growth. So for every person working in the back office, there could be 100 to 200 people on the front office or on the mobiles. Or like in retail, we say that you are frontline employees and we have the retail employees at the back. Now, these are the employees who are actually working, but what they're doing is delivery service. Okay. And if you look at the growth, you don't have, unlike in a brick and mortar where for every 20 you have a supervisor. Okay. Here for every 100 delivery boy, you don't have 5 supervisors because technology is really helping. So on one side, the entry-level jobs will go up, but on the other side, the growth may get curtailed. On the other side, the growth of income may get curtailed. However, there could be a lot of back-end jobs for IT, a lot of back-end jobs for merchandising, a lot of back-end jobs for people who are creating these kind of services where you and me as citizens can actually be served. But let's not forget that because India is going to grow on consumption, unlike a China, which is a manufacturing economy, consumption always happens at the last mile. And the last mile is the most critical part for a consumption economy. So whether it is a Amazon or a Flipkart or a shopperstop.com, end of the day, the last mile delivery is being done by a human being. As of today, we don't have robots, although they are getting drones and robots are getting tested. And India is probably one of the very few countries which has allowed licensing of that. and I'm told there are already 100 licenses issued in Karnataka, or that part of the world, where they are trusting drones for home deliveries, starting with essentials. But I won't be surprised in 5 years when you start getting a delivery on home, inside your home through drones, of course, as long as the cable wires are not all across the world the way we live and have. So I think the way forward for us is that the last mile is the most important. Whether it's in a retail store where the last mile is of somebody who's serving you, if it is online where the last mile is somebody who's delivering you, and if there is a last mile which is a combination of things. I mean, you've heard of what Reliance has done in terms of the various collaborations and investors that they have got, the GeoMart that they have started where they're collaborating with Kiranas. You've heard of ShopEx, you've heard of these retailers, you've heard of this Udan. These are all companies who are actually now creating a collaborative model with the Kiranas and retailers to reach the last mile. Now, this is something very unique which is happening in our country. Unlike Western worlds where modern retail came in, the traditional retail died or they got killed. In our country, my estimation is that with more and more modern retail, more and more technology-led retail coming in, there'll be more and more inclusiveness. Because the structure of our country, the way we live is, okay, you can't open a large store or a warehouse next to our house, but the Kirana would actually work as a hub and spoke for these large players. So, and he is one person or she is one person who knows us as a consumer. So very, very unique hub and spoke model are developing, which actually will ensure that the last mile still remains a human interface. And that gives me hope that the smaller traditional retailers are not going to die. That gives me hope there'll be enough jobs created. Of course, there are challenges. I mean, if millions and millions of delivery boys are going to be on the road, then you'll have millions and millions of two-wheelers. And in the absence of a very good public transport system, we may end up not having the ability to even drive 100 meters because of the kind of traffic that we have. But these are all perils of development and perils of growth. So the last mile is an important mile, and last mile being a service mile, it actually helps in terms of the service concept and thinking of people and the society and the community, which is positive. Because when you're in service, you are always wanting to take care of somebody else. And if a large population is in service, it really makes a difference because that's the attitude you develop. And I know that a long time back, some parent had met me and came and said, Mr. Nagesh, I'm so happy my son works for you in Shoppers Stop, because before that he used to get up at 10 o'clock, night he used to come at 11, and I mean, he was not a very disciplined guy. Since the time he's joined you, he not only gets up at 6:37, but also says good morning to mom and dad, because you all teach them to say good morning, good afternoon so many times that it's just got habit. And the day he finishes his work, he's quite tired, comes back home, has his dinner, sleeps off. So he's become a good boy. Just imagine if the whole country is actually working on a service side, maybe we'll also become lots of good boys and good girls. But these are positive things that happens when such fundamental shifts are happening. And in a $5 trillion economy, which is the Prime Minister's dream, okay, and today's 800 billion consumption in the country, I think the growth is still very, very large opportunities are there, both in terms of modern trade, both in terms of traditional trade, and both in terms of online. So I just want to conclude that you will see a very unique mix of retail happening in this country, wherein you'll find an online player, a modern trade, and a traditional retailer combining with the last mile working. So I'm just giving you a scenario. Just imagine that, and you're talking of Reliance as a GeoMart, but you take off DMart or anybody. So a retailer has an online presence and a physical presence. He ties up with the nearby Kirana, okay, who becomes a last mile hub. And the Kirana guy ties up with the newspaper vendor because the newspaper circulation may have come down, or the milk vendor. And this whole chain works together. And the beauty of this chain is everybody's entrepreneurial. So that paper wala is an entrepreneur, the milk wala is an entrepreneur, the kirana is an entrepreneur, the retailer is an entrepreneur, and everything is that connected, and you will be in the center of everybody's thinking. So if anybody is going to become the king or queen of the modern era, it will be you. And because you have the power in your one hand, well, most of us have started having two mobiles. So maybe you have the power in your two hands, and this power, okay, will be a tremendous power for us to get served well. And if you are in the supply side, our ability to serve the others. But all this will happen with human interface, in my opinion, because of the structure of the way that we live and the structure of our societies. Thank you once again for inviting me. And I hope I've been able to add some value and some interest in what we do in retail. And thank you, Professor Mani. And I would be happy if you have some questions that you want me to answer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nagesh. It was very, very enlightening. And I think what was very enriching was to understand this hybrid model which you were talking about. Because traditionally, I think the first thought that comes to the normal customer is it is Kirana versus supermarket. This is the normal interface that one talks about. But when you're looking at various models which have emerged, partly because of the necessity, and now perhaps it's going to become a way of life. That was something very fascinating that you shared in your own lucid manner. Thank you very much. I have a lot of questions which have come in the chat box, and I shall bring them across to you. In the meantime, may I request you to just throw some light on the wonderful work that you do from Train, because that is a very unique organization, as I understand, doing yeoman service to the community. Can we have your thoughts, please?
So, Professor, yeah, I did decide at the age of 50 to step out of my day-to-day operations in Shop Stop as a managing director and start this not-for-profit called TRAIN, Trust for Retailers and Retail Associates of India. This is also, I think, what influenced by my father, and I divided my life into 4 segments. I call it as 25 years of learning, 25 years of earning, 25 years of returning, and the last 25 years to have more fun than the first 75. So which means I have a 100-year plan to live, and hopefully that wish will get fulfilled. So I'm in the 3rd segment, and therefore after turning 50, I stepped out of all my operational roles. TRAIN is a not-for-profit, a charitable trust. Our whole objective and purpose is to see what we can do to improve the lives of people who work in retail. Like I said, 46 million people who work in retail, average salary is about 10,000 rupees. In the last 20 years, our research showed that their salary has not even grown by inflation. So actually, as years go by and we are seeing prosperity, their life is going bad and worse. At an individual level, at a family level, 3-4 of them are working, maybe the household income of the family is better. So we looked at multiple things. We did some research and got some insights. And for each insight, we created a project. So the first insight we got was that because they have not studied well, or for financial reasons they could not do well, they're asked to work in retail. So they said कि हम तो बोलते ही नहीं है कि दुकानों में काम करते हैं, हमारी कोई इज्जत ही नहीं है. So that whole pride was a very important part. And we said, I mean, whether Diwali, Christmas, Eid, on these days when everybody is having fun, that retail employee is working till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I mean, if you recollect on Diwali night at 9:30, your patakas get over. You rush to the small shopkeeper and again get some more firecrackers. But that guy is still sitting there to see that he sells firecrackers to you. So we said, can we do something to create this pride? And we conceptualized this day called Retail Employees Day, which happened today in 2011, 12 December. And I went and met a few people and requested them to say, why don't we just use this day and make this their Diwali, their Christmas? Let's celebrate as companies, as corporates. I'm so happy that as I'm talking to you, last year we had 15 million people celebrating in 5 countries. Today, our estimation is we will cross and surpass these numbers. And today, probably we'll see something's happening globally, which will actually take this to the world because Dubai is celebrating, Philippines is celebrating, Bangladesh is celebrating. So it's become a big day for us. And honestly, as far as the trust is concerned, what we have done is we have created a concept and approached people. And now we are not involved. It is just catching on its own. It's actually being spread. We are at the back end. We are a very small trust, just 10 of us that we've set up in the last 10 years. The second was to say respect. पढ़े लिखे नहीं हमारी कोई इज्जत नहीं है तो क्या करेंगे? So we said, can we create an award for retail employees for customer service? This again has gone global because all over the world, I mean, there are lots of awards for the general managers, CEOs, but nobody has ever recognized the front-end associates anywhere in the world for what they do. And what they do is customer service. So, Professor, we started this award called Train Awards for Customer Service. Again, this has become the biggest award for customer service in the country. On our site, if you go, you'll see some 3,000 stories. You'll see wonderful stories of service that happens. And we were able to collaborate with Intercontinental Group of Department Stores, a worldwide body of department stores, 45 countries. And 2015 in Rome, 17 in Toronto, and 2019 in Tokyo. We selected the best 6 associates in the world for retail. I mean, this is unique. For retail as an industry, which is more than 2 centuries, okay, for a small initiative from India to have gone global, I think we feel very good about it. The third initiative was inclusion. हम community के लिए काम करते हैं, society के लिए काम करते हैं, but उनको हम अपना नहीं मानते. You know, it's strange. And just imagine if these kiranas were not there serving us, or these online were not there serving us, what would have happened to 130 crore of Indians? I mean, how would our kitchens run? So we said, can we do something as inclusion? And we identified that India has 26 million persons with disability. We said, is there a way that we can marry this opportunity into retail? So we started a program called Punk, Wings of Destiny, where we trained 22 people with disability in Hyderabad in 2011, and all of them got jobs. And the kind of jobs they did and the kind of productivity they brought in encouraged us to really expand it. Before the pandemic hit us, we had 52 centers across the country. And in 1920, we graduated and skilled 5,000 such employees. And 73% of them have taken up jobs in retail. So cumulatively in the last 9 years, we have actually skilled 17,000 persons with disability, with 73% having taken jobs in retail. And what started as just 3-4 companies actually creating inclusive policy. Today, we have more than 150 corporates, from Reliance to Shoppers to Lifestyle to Big Bazaar to DMart to V2 Retail. I mean, Vishal Mega Mart, all of them actually take people. 55% of them are deaf or speech and hearing impaired, and they're working on the front end as cashiers. You'll be amazed on their productivity. So this is the third thing we did. And the fourth and the last one was on skilling and development. You know, they said, पढ़े लिखे नहीं है, कोई पढ़ाता ही नहीं, आगे कैसे बढ़ेंगे? So we actually said, can we actually create a app, a community app, which can actually help people get support and empower them to really grow themselves by educating themselves, going through courses. So this was started a few years back, and now on this app we have close to 200,000 people, and this is a one-stop app for all the retail employees in the country. They can get counseling services, doctor services, medical services, legal services, loans, deals, education, multiple knowledge, multiple content. And I believe, and our dream is to take this to at least 100 million people in the next 5 to 10 years' time. So we are on it, a small company with limited resources, but big dreams. And the journey continues. Like I said, I have another 40 years to go, maybe 39 years to go.
You're sounding very humble, as you always are, but I think it is a fantastic contribution to the industry. And what really struck us so much was, one always thought that all the big malls, all the big supermarkets actually compete with each other, which they anyway do for business. But the effort to collaborate all of them for the betterment of the community at large, I think is truly inspirational. For those of us who have not known about Train before, I have put in the website of Train. Please note it down and share it with people who may be interested in seeking careers in retail, but don't know really how to progress in that direction because of their socioeconomic backgrounds. Couple of questions which come up here, and the first one, Nagesh, is throw some light on how India compares with the Western world in terms of our malls, our supermarkets. How long will it take for us to become one of those big names?
So I think since you use Western worlds, let me take an example internationally of Walmart in a brick and mortar store, or a Macy's or a Bloomingdale's in a department store, Amazon's online, or look at John Lewis in UK, which is again a very large department stores, but also has gone online. And of course, you have, all of you know, the Alibabas and those of China. If you look at all this, I think we are very fledgling. What happened 30 years back has probably started happening with us 10 years back. So on the brick and mortar size, the opportunity to create another Walmart in India is definitely there because of the size. So will somebody become $100 billion retailer in this country? Yes. Will they become in 70 years, 80 years? No, it will happen much earlier. But will that be only brick and mortar? Again, no. Because unlike a US, which is a land abundant country, where you could get large sites and you could actually go and shop and fill your boot and come back. India doesn't have that. The second is the income parity is not there. I mean, let's not forget at $2,000 versus a $40,000 or a 28,000 pounds. We are not comparable. And these kind of large businesses grow when families have two cars. I mean, that's one of the ways to look at growth, because then somebody, the wife is going or the husband goes in a car, dumps everything and comes back. Yeah. So I'm not expecting that kind of a large format will happening. And also, unlike these countries, we already have a sense of kiranas. So to me, they will be large retailers, but the larger retailers will be the omnichannel players. Players who are able to combine things together. Players, like I said, who will actually make the kiranas and the brick and mortars and the online come together. These are likely to be service companies, which will be more marketplaces and platforms rather than pure play online or pure play offline. So one thing is very clear, it is the omni, which is the future. What percentage of brick and mortar can become omni? I think there's a great example in John Lewis in UK. John Lewis also started about 20 years back. And from there, they were in the region of 10 to 15% many years. And in the pandemic, I'm told that online has become 50-60% of the business. But yesterday, somebody was telling me that even Sephora has 50-60% online business in beauty. So just online or just offline may not be the way forward for India. The other part is that capital is very, very important for growth, because in both online and offline, capital requirement is very high. In the offline, the asset creation takes a lot of money. It takes you 3 to 5 years for every store to break even. In online, the amount of losses that you have to go through before you start making money is another very large amount. Unfortunately, the laws of the land in terms of FDI, okay, is such that you can't get as much capital as you want. There are multiple rules and multiple structures and things that you have to create in order to do all this and get the kind of capital. So in the absence of that, you will actually find that there will be 4 or 5 large players who will become very, very large. Okay, whether they are House of Reliance or House of Tatas or House of Birlas. Okay, and you'll actually find that there are smaller players who use technology and services and may become unicorn. Okay, but I'm not seeing too many unicorns developing out of services in India because of the kind of revenues that they can generate. So that's the way it looks like India will grow. So my suggestion is play omni. My suggestion is play services. My suggestion would be not to put too much money in brick and mortar if you do not have the capital. If you have the capital and you come from such families, you can put in, but don't depend only on brick and mortar. Do an omni play.
Well, extending the suggestion of omni, we also feel that there is now a diversity in the customer profiles. So you have Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Each one of them expects a different shopping experience. Each one of them expects a different shopping standard. How does one really try to blend all these requirements of the customer? It must be a challenge. And we'd like to hear your expert views on this.
So I did mention right in the beginning that pandemic has actually created 3-4 cohorts. So first of all, very few companies would like to have all of them as customers, other than the hypermarkets and the department stores and online. Otherwise, I would strongly recommend, if you're a startup or if you're a business, I would recommend that you choose which segment of customers you want to deal with. So for example, you have let me talk of a service example and a product example. You also have a mother care, which is a brick and mortar. You have a me and mom, which is a brick and mortar. And you have a first cry, which is actually online big and is also having a brick and mortar. But it's all children and infants. Now with pandemic, you know that the number of children who are likely to be born next year is going to be multifold. Yeah. So therefore, this is a huge opportunity. And if this is a huge, huge opportunity, I think you can just do baby products. And within baby products, you can still do unique niche products and actually cater to some of them, or be on Amazon or marketplace or Flipkart or whatever it is. So as similar to this, there are lots. For example, if you're a small player, organic is becoming very, very big. Okay, not that big for you to start a $1 billion company, but big enough for you to start off in a small way and actually grow. So there are lots of niches which are available for different target audience. So I think if you can tie that niche to a target audience, I think there's a huge opportunity. You have to identify that. So for example, like I said, I mean, we have started in Shoppers of WhatsApp services And we have started a service called 60 plus, 60 Sathi, okay, which is actually serving the senior citizens. Now that itself is an opportunity, and we see a small percentage being served to the senior citizens, but you may have an opportunity to do that. So if you want to create where you want to serve everybody with every product, I think you require a large amount of capital, and I would suggest that you should avoid that.
So I guess niche is the way ahead, so that the specialization brings in that cohort of customers whom you can give a unique service, which they obviously cherish. Absolutely. A nice observation made by one of the participants, Mr. Ganapati. He says, one side we talk about training all the retail employees, which is, of course, something you all do so well, and therefore the whole experience becomes very meaningful. Maybe it's also time to consider training the customers who come, because many of them actually don't know how to enjoy the experience. So we'd like to hear your views on this.
See, as a retailer, it is very difficult to say that how consumers are. But let me tell you, there is a Pareto principle which works everywhere. I would say 99% of our customers are really customers who come. I mean, maybe they don't say thank you. I mean, today we are saying, hey guys, if you are served well with a retailer, served with a retail employee, at least say thank you to him today, for the service they do for 364 days. I don't think we have to train customers. I don't think we have to teach them what to do, how to do. I think it's very simple. I mean, the way you behave at home with your children, okay, with your parents, just behave the same way in the store. Because at the end of the day, that 18-year, 20-year, 22-year who's actually serving you is serving you and is working in that job because of circumstances. This could be your son or your daughter. It is just that in India, we do not look at this as that part of society where you have pride. I mean, if you look at Mr. Doug McMillon, who's the CEO of Walmart worldwide, a $700 billion company, okay, he started as a loader before he went and did his management. So he could have started as a loader and today be the managing director of a company. I mean, I started as a front-end sales employee and whatever I have done. So as long as customers understand that part, it will make a lot of difference. And we are seeing a change. We are seeing a change. Yeah. Unfortunately, our culture, on side we have Athitu Devo Bhava. On the other side, we also had different castes and creeds and segmentation made that he or she does this job. He's a Vaishya, he's a Kayas, he's so and so and so and so. So those differentiations are there, but I think it's merging out. Today, especially the modern day, the youngsters, the youth are actually not differentiating so much because they're also involved in working on that side. But well, I don't know if there's an opportunity to teach people how to shop and how to behave, but I think this all happens at home. The way they live the first 10, 15, 20 years of their life is the way they behave in the rest of the society, wherever they are, whether it is office, workplace, or at retail shops.
Absolutely. Well said. I'm happy to welcome Mr. Ernest Fernandez. He's a past president of the Bombay Management Association and has been a marketing veteran for over 40 years till he retired from Tata's. Mr. Fernandez, over to you.
Thank you. What is in India, we have what is called the MRP, the maximum retail price, which I believe doesn't exist in America and other countries. The cost of putting a product in a mall is much more than in a shop, and yet they have to sell at the same price. In your opinion, is MRP hampering the growth of modern?
Excellent question, Mr. Fernandez. You're absolutely right. I think nowhere in the world anything called MRP exists. Yeah. Rest of the world, I mean, you may be selling the same product, but you may be selling at different prices depending on the kind of service that you're giving. The simple example I give you in India is, I mean, a bottle of water at an MRP of 20 rupees, okay, cannot be sold about 20 rupees even in a 5-star hotel. But the same bottle, if you recollect your visit to any of the hotels, they open the cork and then give you the bottle. Sometimes they don't even serve you. But then when you open the cork, it is no more bottled water and therefore you can sell it for 70 rupees. Yeah. So it is unbelievable as to how MRP has been created. I had, as chairman of Retail Association, chance to meet the minister a few years back in the consumer affairs. And I was actually talking to the gentleman and he said that this MRP law still cannot be changed, basically because if we don't do this, a large number of Indians are still not as educated and they may be cheated with people charging any price. Maybe in today's world with online, it can actually not be as challenging because people are able to see all across, understand, see it on the screen what's happening. But it hampers the growth, especially of the modern retail. But on the other hand, it also brings in extreme competitiveness and productivity. So for the same Louis Philippe shirt, which is sold in a small shop at $1,000 and in exclusive shop at 1,000 and a department store and shop at 1,000, we have to learn how to make money and how to be so productive that we can still make money out of the 1,000 rupees MRP that we get. So my thinking is that for some more years, MRP has to exist. But slowly and slowly, I think the government has to think of taking away this MRP and allow a free market for people to actually build products and sell accordingly. But MRP is a challenge, definitely. And it is also sometimes easy for the government because many taxes are related to MRP. So it is all abatement to MRP. So 40% of MRP or 60% of MRP becomes the base price for excise when it was there, or GST and various taxes. So it's fairly complicated, but very, very good question. And you've actually picked up a very sore point in the retail industry. But as of today, I don't see a solution. I don't see a solution even for the next 3 to 5 years, the way the government operates.
Thank you.
The next question pertains to what we often discuss is the digital divide. We keep talking about India and Bharat, and you did mention this somewhere in the context of your discussions about how the reach of rural into urban has slowly begun. But yet retail as an industry is still seen as an urban phenomena. Would you like to comment about this and if there are any changes happening?
So, since I also am part of an FMCG board, I can tell you that in the last 1 year, rural actually has been a very big shift. So if you ask me in the last 1 year, the biggest contribution, and FMCG products have seen growth, has happened from rural and traditional trade, less from modern trade. Actually, modern trade has degrown in the first 6-7 months. The traditional trade has remained flat and rural has actually grown. It's also because rural got a lot of income in their hand because of better crops and because of the various schemes and the monies that government gave into the hands of people in the rural areas. But I think we should not forget the reality of our country. The reality of our country is $2,000. In fact, after the economy has shrunk, it was at $1,850, $1,890. And there were some comments that we are likely to be lower than even Bangladesh on a per capita. So ladies and gentlemen, if our total average per capita is $1,800, then there'll be so many people below $1,800. $1,800 is $150. And $150 is $5, so less than that a day. I mean, it's not easy for anybody to survive and do say. So if you look at the consumption pattern, if your per capita income is $2,000, then you consume about 280 SKUs, roughly 300 for sake of discussion, in a rural area. What is 300? If a shirt is one, my glass is one, my watch is one, my dhoti is one, dal is one, chawal is one, like this. Only 280, 300, okay? Whereas if you look at an urban area, probably your house or some other house, the consumption is 100,000 SKUs. Because if you look at it, the kind of dips that you have in your fridge, maybe you'll have 6 kinds of dips. And with the 6 kinds of dips, you'll have 6 more things to eat with. So only in dip, it becomes 12 SKUs. So when you have a 200 to 300 SKUs, you can't run a retail system, okay? Because the consumption is low, because the virtue of per capita and the width of consumption is also low. So till the time the Indian per capita moves to around 8,000 to 10,000, okay, you will see the same pattern being there. And therefore you see that the top 10, 15, 20 cities actually are doing very well because the per capita has reached that kind of a number. The reason for online doing well is that even in a city where there are only 1,000 people with a per capita of 8,000, online can reach, but for a department store or a supermarket or a hypermarket to set up a shop, it is not viable to put up brick and mortar to serve just about 1,000 people. And that's the reason why I'm saying that a hybrid model is what the way forward for the country going forward.
All right. Mr. Fernandez mentioned about the MRP bit of it, and you gave a solid explanation to the whole thing. A related question that's come up is, typically when we go to a mall, we always expect something being sold at a discount. So the mall is often seen as a place where MRP is just namke vaste. How does one really understand the true perception of what it is? and the customer should feel good about it that he is not being taken for a ride.
So, so if you look at it, because in India we have an MRP and that is the reference point, therefore we have a discount. Just imagine if there was no MRP, there wouldn't have been a discount to MRP. You would be getting a particular price. That's it. In fact, I have myself seen items online where items are priced at 10,000 rupees and an 80% discount is given at 2,000 rupees. The MRP is 10,000 and I have seen a similar item available for 3,000 rupees somewhere else. So yes, there are people who are actually jacking up prices. Okay, I'm not saying it is in a mall, but online spaces, a lot of such things happening. Because what happens in the mall is you can actually go and physically compare the product. Online, you will not be able to physically compare the product because you see the product only when it comes in hand. And that's why Indians who love to touch and feel are likely to sustain brick and mortar longer than what happened anywhere else in the world. But now with open return policy, exchange when you want, see the consumer is getting a tremendous power in the hand. So I would say 99%, okay, you are not being cheated. Because the higher the MRP, you have to pay higher the GST. And many a times when you're actually, because the GST is a tax which happens at every level. Okay, so sometimes you have to pay a very high tax when it comes to you. So therefore, I'm saying it is not being as manipulative as we think as consumers. And I think 99% of retailers in this country are not cheating you when they have an MRP and they're discounting. Okay, 1% there could be possibilities, but 1% happens in almost everything.
Well, that's very reassuring for most of the people because I guess we've often seen this pre-COVID, of course, that the malls are chock-a-block during a sale period, and during normal times, you don't see the same kind of crowd. I guess discount is what drives people sometimes more than any other reason, but you have explained the logic behind it all.
So, Professor, let me give you one more example. I mean, Indians are value seekers. Okay, let me give you 3-4 examples. You must have heard of a lot of people who buy their grains, rice and gehu for a year.
Yes.
Even in cities like Mumbai or cities where the per square feet cost of rental or property is 10 times more than buying that grain and keeping it inside because you're getting it 5 rupees a kg cheaper. Even today, the richest and richest of people, you'll find in Mumbai a lot of registration of Mercedes car, which is HR, Haryana, or in different places. So even though you have all the money, you still want to buy a 60 lakh vehicle where you can save 2% of road tax less. Or even before the octroi went off, how many people staying in Mumbai would actually want to register it outside octroi to save octroi? So India is a very value conscious country. The behavior is such because we've still not come out of that poverty level or average per capita income where we have a huge amount of disposable income. The aspiration and disposable income class in India is only 30-40 million households out of the total. Okay, and that's the reason why most businesses, when they come from international source, have a problem in India because somewhere they are sitting and saying, okay, 1.3 billion population multiplied by $2 per month, and we will have $1 billion company. It doesn't work like that. So we are value conscious. You see what happens on the street vendor negotiation. I mean, even the richest lady who comes out of a crore car would love to bargain. Okay, there are people who bargain even in shops for a saree. So that's the nature of what we are. Okay, and I think this will not change. And especially in the pandemic, a lot of value-based product sales have gone up. So I don't think India will move the luxury way as much as Europe or China moved. India is likely to be a bigger value play. And that's why you look at it, even a BMW has a X1 variant, which is at 35 lakhs versus whatever X5, which is at 75 lakhs. So all brands are creating variants because that's the mindset of Indians. Even though you may be rich, this will change in the next 20-30 years when the Gen Z actually and the Gen Y comes into the behavior because they have not come with insecurities. Like many of you and some of you I can see on the screen. I mean, we have not waited for 10 years to get a telephone connection. Okay, we have not waited for 20 years to get a two-wheeler. Okay, I mean, we have not requested somebody to help us buy an airline ticket. I think so that has to cross. Give another 20 years, we will behave in similar ways.
Yeah, that's very interesting. All this, as you said, now you wait 10 minutes to get a phone connection as against the 10 years that you were talking about at some point.
Somebody comes to your house.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. There are, I think, one more important question which I think we should bring up, keeping in respect of time. Could you share with us how the personality of Shopper Stop has changed over a period of time in the last 30 years? Notwithstanding the recent pandemic and the aftermath, but how do you think the personality has changed? Because we have seen it grow leaps and bounds. We'd like to hear it from the guru.
I think in shoppers, I would say there were 3 or 4 phases. The first phase was we brought in modern retail in the country. Okay, nobody had even seen open services, nobody had seen computerized billing, nobody had seen. So lot of those things were first time. So if you look at most of the first time things that happened in this country in retail, in modern retail was done by shoppers between 1991 to 2000. So I think that's the first 10 years phase. And that time, if you look at it, it was all the aspiring Indians, the middle class Indians, the 1990s growth people who came in. Then if you look at between 2000 and 2010, the next 10 years is the time when we actually grew and expanded and we saw competition. But we continue to serve the 28 to 35. You know, our average age of our people we are serving were in the region of 28, 29. Yeah. Then suddenly we saw competition coming in, malls started opening up and many retailers started coming in. And we also started seeing segmentation of products as well as customers. And there we saw a phase where probably our competition grew faster than us. And therefore we saw our average age going up. We actually crossed 31, 32. And we saw that the youngsters didn't want to go to the same place where their parents went. And this is where the millennial and the Gen Z started coming in, and there was a challenge there. Then the next 10 years, which is the last 10 years, if you look at it, I think we have seen a phase where we are coming back in the last 3 to 4 years with youngsters coming back, basically led by our cosmetics and beauty business, and some of the brands that we sell in terms of watches and sunglasses, and some of the younger brands we're selling, but we still remain about 30 or so. But one of the things that has worked extremely well for us is our First Citizen Club members. I mean, for the last 10, 15, 20 years, we still remain one of the largest loyalty programs anywhere in the world. It's almost about 80% of our business coming from members. And even in tough times, the members have supported. So to me, the brand, the trust, and the affiliation of the customers with the brand and vice versa has sustained this brand for such a long time. In the last 1 year, we have actually brought in our online business in a big way. And we're still fledglings in that. But the way things are, I think we have doubled the online, and I think it's going to further double as we go forward. So we would be a pure and a very dominant omni-channel department store in the next 3 to 5 years' time.
Well, wonderful to hear that. You mentioned about loyalty club. Yes, many of us are loyalty club members of Shopper Stop, and the online experience, trust me, has been fascinating over the last couple of months, especially when there was very little choice to step out. So I guess it just talks about the wonderful values that you have developed in that entire team right from day one, and compliments to you for making Shopper Stop the super brand that it is today, the first and the most remarkable shopping mall of India, if one would say so. As they rightly say, all good things do come to an end, but in BMA, we say it comes to a pause, because I guess the learning continues. You can feel free to connect with Mr. Nagesh and understand about the wonderful work they do to train. You, of course, do experience a wonderful service and customer experience at Shopper Stop. So I guess the relationship will continue, not only for the 40 years that he projected, but for a lifetime for every one of us who is part of this call. Thank you so much for making time off on this very busy day for you. Though it's a very monumental day for the entire retail industry, you chose to spend this time with us. And about 45 of us who were there right through this session at different points in time really felt very inspired. I'm going to request my colleague on the executive committee, Rajesh Sharma, to please propose the vote of thanks on all our behalf. Over to you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Professor. Uh, Thank you, Mr. Nagesh, for for a very insightful session on retail trade. It speaks volumes about your wealth of knowledge and the depth of experience, and the way you have put it with all the data in place, especially the hybrid model which you talked about, the retail trade and the modern trade and the Kirana stores, which is absolutely, I think, And so thank you very much for spending time with us with BMA, and on a Saturday you have enlightening all of us. Thank you, Professor Mani, for being in the front for all these sessions, and showing the way every time, and all the participants and the BMA team for organizing such a wonderful session, especially participants on a Saturday afternoon when you have taken out time and spent. And I'm sure this session was worthwhile. The time spent worthwhile. We have learned many new things which will be helpful for us, both in business as well as in our personal lives. So thank you very much, Mr. Nagesh, once again for being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And before we sign off for this day, may I request everyone to put on their videos so that we can have a group picture with Mr. Nagesh, so that we remember the wonderful time that we spent with him this morning, learning about retail and the people who work in retail and how they have so well impacted our lives in a very, very constructive manner. So put on your videos so that we can capture this moment. I have my colleagues Lakshmi, Oindrila, Supriya from the Secretariat of BMA, who play the multitasking role of being digital photographers, and they will capture this moment for all of us. Do continue to be with us as part of the learning journey of BMA. Coming Wednesday is our webinar where we talk about branding, and it's being presented by Lulu Raghavan, who is the managing director of Landor, which is a very large branding organization. And next Friday, we are launching the very, very important ESG conclave, Environment, Social Governance, which is being led by our own former president, Mr. Sailesh Haribhakti, who is the thought leader in this entire activity. Stay tuned for several of our programs so that we continue the learning journey on the digital mode as we started way back in April. Give us a couple of seconds. We have two screens to cover so that all of you are captured with your bright smiles on a Saturday morning. Well, I have a confirmation from the team. Thank you so much, everyone, for making it here this morning. Thank you very much, Nagesh, and we look forward to our continued learning over a period of time. Good day, everybody, and have a lovely weekend.